Hi everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, November 3rd, I was going to say 1999, don't ask me where that came from, 2022. And this is episode 235. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I am coming to you from my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, which is east of Vancouver. I hope you're all doing well, that you've had a good week. It took me a little while to get out of vacation mode, but over the past week I have settled back into what I call real life, and it feels good to have caught up on some things that have been neglected, including responding to comments and catching up on various Ravelry messages, Ravelry groups. Threads, that's the word. Groups, threads, forums, you know what I mean. I am delighted to say that I have a finished project to share with you this week, as well as a couple of works in progress and also a few future knits. But first of all, I am going to announce some winners for the Year of the Stash. If you are new, first of all, welcome. Second of all, if you don't know what the Year of the Stash is, you've been missing out on a fantastic year-long make-along, which has been taking place in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. Stash is anything you acquired prior to 2022. There is a general Year of the Stash chatter thread in which we talk about the things we are making from stash, and there's also a personal sock yarn club every month. So even though there's only a couple of months left in this make along, you can still join in. Just check out the first post in each of the pertinent threads and come join in. So first up is the winner for the October portion of the general Year of the Stash chatter thread. I drew from numbers 1899 to 1994, and random number generator chose number 1980. That is DMB714, who is Donna from New Brunswick. So congratulations, Donna. You have won one of these two project bags that I have sewn up. I'm not sure which one you'll get, whichever one lands in your envelope. They're both very similar, made from the same pack of mini charms. Please send me a private message on Ravelry with your shipping information. Next up is the chatter thread winner for the September Personal Sock Yarn Club. I drew from numbers 3 to 54, and random number generator chose post number 8. That is Quilty Knit, who is Kathy from Delaware. So congratulations, Kathy. You are going to win the other of these project bags. So please send me a private message on Ravelry with your shipping information, including your phone number, because I need it for customs. And finally, the winner of the September FO thread for the Personal Sock Yarn Club. I drew from numbers 2 to 23. Random number generator chose number 17. That is Judy Lee 59 Knits, who is Judy from Pennsylvania. So congratulations, Judy. You have won up to $25 US in patterns that are giftable on Ravelry. So please send me a private message on Ravelry with the patterns that you would like, and I will get those into your inbox as soon as I can. So congratulations again to all the winners, and thank you to everyone who has been participating in the Year of the Stash. I just can't believe there's only 2 months left. I was thinking about maybe not continuing the whole Year of the Stash next year, but I thought maybe next year, instead of just a personal sock yarn club, we might do something like skein of the month, where we tuck away 12 skeins of yarn, whether they're sock yarn or something else, and that we make something with them each month. So tell me what you think about that idea. I've really enjoyed the chatter all year long, and I hate to see that end. So I thought that might keep people engaged. So yes, give me some feedback on that. Let me know what you think. So before I get into my projects, what I'm wearing, it's cold enough today to wear a sweater. It is actually raining. It's just started raining a little while ago, and we're supposed to get quite a bit of rain over the next 24 hours or so, and some winds after a couple of not too bad days. This is Simple Stripes by Suvi Simola, and I finished this at the beginning of August, so it's the first time, well, actually it's not the first time I've worn it, because I did actually wear it on Sunday when it was also rainy and cold. I knit this from 3 colors of sweet, I think it was Super Sweet Sock from Sweet Fibers. That was this one, and this one. And then a couple of skeins of Madeline Tosh Merino Light. So I really, really like this sweater. It's kind of just like a stripy t-shirt, great with jeans. And it's got a folded hem on both the cuffs and the bottom. So yeah, really love this sweater and happy to be having a chance to wear it. Okay, I have a finished project. As I mentioned, they are my October socks from the Personal Sock Yarn Club. This yarn is from Biscot Yarns. It's the Bis Sock base in the Hudson Memories colorway. And then I actually found this, what I thought was the perfect yarn in my scraps to do the heels. This is from Midnight Cravings, their light sock base in the Twilight colorway. So bring it a little bit closer so you can see. It's my usual top down 64 stitch sock on a 2mm needle. So I did 2x2 rib, a traditional heel flap and gusset. So this indigo matches the indigo stripe just wonderfully, and then my usual rounded toe. Now, when I first started working on these socks, I talked a little bit about Hudson's Bay blankets and their history. And I was knitting on these on Sunday over at our daughter's place, and she commented on them and noted that they looked like Hudson's Bay blankets, and I said, yes, that's exactly what the yarn is supposed to represent. And what I didn't realize is, I think it was at the beginning of October or just the end of September, the Hudson's Bay Company announced that from now on, all of the proceeds from the sale of Hudson's Bay blankets will be directed towards Indigenous initiatives. They've paired up with an organization. And that's in recognition of the fact that even though the Hudson's Bay blankets are a Canadian icon, they have a different meaning towards many Indigenous people, because they see them as a symbol of colonialism. The blankets were originally traded with Native peoples for pelts, primarily beaver pelts. And of course, that fur trade completely changed, or directed, I should say, probably the history of Canada. And so I understand more now, while it's not just something to be celebrated, but there's also a darker side to what this iconic striping represents. So I think that is a good step towards trying to make some reconciliation toward the Native peoples who were affected so profoundly by the fur trade and the subsequent settlement in Canada. I am also working on another pair of socks. These have not seen a whole lot of love since I last showed them to you, but I did pick them up the other day and put a couple of stripe repeats in them. So these, I'm just going to show you one. My other one is just done, whoops, just past the heel to about there. So I am knitting these for the Fiber Nymph Dye Works Make It Your Own Make Along. This is the Bounce Base, and it is my leftovers from the Winter Palette Half Skein set. I used the bulk of the yarn to make a snow melt shawl, which I shared with you in previous episodes, and now I'm using the rest to make these socks. So my plan is, well, I have enough. You can see there's just this little bit of the sky blue colorway remaining. There should be enough to do one more stripe, so I should get one more repeat out of my striping sequence. And then I am planning to use this, let me just find it here, the variegated skein for the cuffs. And if I have enough left of some other colors, I might incorporate some stripes into the cuffs, or maybe do them after the cuffs. I would like to use up as much of this as I can, so we'll see. So yeah, this is a toe-up sock, as you can probably tell, and I did a German short row heel, and that way I can use up as much of the yarn as possible. I had a viewer comment about sort of how funny it is to see me with my yarn in plastic bags when I've made so many project bags for myself. But for this project, this just seemed to work better. And what I have in this one plastic bag are two Ziploc bags, one with my other sock in progress and the yarn for that sock, and then the rest of my scraps for the sock that I just showed you. I was a little miffed when we were on our trip. I had taken one project on the plane and I used wooden needles just in case, but I had taken both, well actually I took, yeah, but both my Hudson's memory socks and these scrappy socks with me, and I put them both in a outside pocket of a suitcase to fly home. And when I got to the airport in Houston, actually someone noticed right by my suitcase after I had taken it off the carousel, my sock ruler had fallen out of the pocket. Well, what had happened is obviously security had opened the pocket to check out my knitting, because they had pulled out my yarn and things from the cloth bag I had these in. And also apparently, I guess using a Ziploc was too difficult for them or took too much time. They ended up ripping into my Ziploc bag to maybe check out. I have a little pair of scissors in here. I don't know, or maybe just the knitting needles, but how rude. They didn't even do up the outside pocket. So I'm lucky I did not end up losing anything out of that. But certainly have no objection to them checking. That's what they're supposed to do. But I thought that it was rather careless and inconsiderate of them not to make sure that, you know, to treat my stuff with respect. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Drinking some jasmine tea today. It has surprisingly not kept very hot, so I'm probably gonna put this on pause in a minute and go heat it up again. But first, I will show you my last work in progress, and it is my Stephen West Mystery Shawl Knit Along Twists and Turns. So I'm going to show clue 1 and 2 and most of clue 3. I know I'm way behind and that most of you have probably already seen the entire thing, but in case you haven't looked yet, here is fair warning that I'm going to show all of those to you, and I will include a timestamp so you can jump ahead to the next segment if you don't want to be spoiled. So here I go. So yes, as I mentioned, I'm a little behind, but I knew that would be the case. I knew I wouldn't get a lot of knitting time on this while I was away, and so by the time I got home, I think both Clues 2 and 3 had come out, and I think Clue 4 came out a week ago when I last recorded. So just as a reminder, I'm using 3 colors of Cascade 220 fingering. This is 9400 charcoal, 8400, excuse me, 8400. This is 8401, which is silver, and this is 9404 ruby. So those are my 3 colors together. And I have to say, I am still really happy with my color choices. I like how they are looking knit up. Now this yarn is 100% Peruvian Highland wool, I think, and so it is, you know, it's not scratchy, but it's on the rustic side, the sticky side, and I actually think that's been lending kind of a nice look to the shawl also. This, I'm not using a plastic bag, I'm using this mesh bag that I got, I think, from the Loopy U years ago, and this is a great size for a big project like this mystery shawl. So as a reminder, this was Clue 1. I don't think I'd even finished Clue 1 when I showed it to you last time, but I did persevere and finally finish up Clue 1. And then Clue 2, we worked on either wings on either side of this center, and created these wedges. So I was thrilled to get to introduce my accent color. And then we added a cable border to that side of the, to each side, I should say, of the wedge. Or no, let's rephrase that. To the bottom of each of the side wedges. So it looks like that on one side. And then of course you have the mirror image on the other side. Whoops. So I wasn't sure where we were going to go next, but we ended up knitting off of this wing here, this long, what would you even call this? Strip. And it features this really lovely twisted rib, meandering design. This kind of, not even a zigzag, kind of just a wavy pattern. And it goes all the way to the end and ends in a I-cord bind off. So I have one side all done, and the other, I have that much done. So not even quite halfway yet. But I did look ahead. There is an optional design element for Clue 3, which I will be including, and that is to knit strips of I-cord in your accent color, so the red, and then you thread them through these, I think these are antler cables, is that what they're called? Staghorn cables, something like that. Anyway, you thread them through there, so you have a accent on each of the cables in this section. I think that's going to look really cool, especially because I think the red will really pop nicely against this silver colorway. So I may not do that until the very end though, because, you know, these are kind of long and a bit of a nuisance, and I'd like to see them used up. Now, I will not reveal anything about Clue 4, but last night while I was working on this, I did watch the Clue 4 video, and so I do know how the shawl ends. I did not look at Clue 3 until I had finished Clue 2 completely, but I decided that since I knew what Clue 3 was going to look like because I had watched the video, that I would go ahead finally and watch Clue 4. So some of the things I thought might happen are going to happen. Other things are surprises to me. And while I would say that this design is not necessarily one that I would have chosen to knit had I seen it all completed beforehand, that wasn't the point of this exercise. This was all about the mystery process and going out of my comfort zone and learning something new. And I have to say, I don't dislike the finished project at all. I think it's very clever and has lots of neat components to it. So I don't want it to make you think that I'm going to, you know, dislike what I'm going to end up with. But had I seen it beforehand, I probably wouldn't have chosen it. But I'm glad that I've been participating in this. And now that I know what the finished shawl looks like, I don't have the same sense of urgency. So I am just going to work on this as I can. And I would love to finish it this month, but it's not going to be my priority. I will talk more about what my priorities are for November after I go warm up my tea, and then yeah, I'll talk about what's up and coming. All right, it is time for up and coming projects. First up are my November socks for the Personal Sock Yarn Club. I went ahead and opened my paper bag the other day, and it wasn't a surprise at all because I had remembered what I'd stashed away for November. It is this skein of Fiber Nymph Dyeworks yarn. It is the bronzed sparkle base in the sugar plumbed colorway. And that is a 5-stripe colorway. This was introduced, I think, a couple of years ago as a winter or holiday or Christmas colorway. And I fell in love with it then, and so I'm really excited to be finally knitting it up. And at the same time, or sometime later, I ordered this skein. I think this is Merlot, so I have a mini skein to use for the heels. So yeah, I can't wait to get going on those. I feel like I'm in a little bit of a panic. That's probably too strong a word, but sometimes, you know, in your mind, things loom larger than they are. We are in the final month of the 4th quarter of the Fiber Nymph Dyeworks Meomal, or Make It Your Own Make-Along. And in order to qualify for a special skein of yarn, you have to use 200 grams of Fiber Nymph Dyeworks yarn in each of the quarters. And I have successfully done that for the first 3 quarters, and I'm determined to do it for the last. So my winter palette socks will use somewhere around 80 or so, I think. I think there's about 85 grams left over. I'll probably use about the same for this pair of socks. That's usually about what I end up using, about 80 grams. So that only leaves about 40 grams. And I was going through my bin of Fiber Nymph Dyeworks yarn, Incidentally, I thought this year that I would actually decrease the amount of Fiber Nymph Dyeworks yarn in my stash, and instead I seem to have acquired more. I can hardly put the lid on. Having said that, what I came across while I was poking around my craft room this morning is I have this bag of leftovers from the 2020 Fiber Nymph Dyeworks, so let me give the right name, Holiday Pops Mini Collection. I had knit a cowl with most of it, and then I knit a pair of scrappy socks with some of the leftovers. And I have about 2 grams left of each of the colors. So what I've decided to do is knit a child's scrappy hat with the rest. I am going to use the Flax Light pattern as a guide, and I'm going to kind of reverse engineer it. Start with the crown and increase to the right size, and then just keep working as long as I can. And if I end up needing more yarn, I have lots of scraps of Fiber Nymph Dyeworks yarn. A lot of them are from mini skeins in nice bright colors, and so I can add some additional stripes if necessary. But I'm going to start with the yarn I have left over from this. And so that way I can reach my 200 gram minimum without overburdening myself this month. I still have a bit of gift knitting I want to do, and also I want to work on the mystery shawl. I would love to finish that up by the end of November. And then I know that I have some more holiday mini skeins coming, and I'm going to want to start opening those and working with those at the beginning of December. I also couldn't resist. While I was away, I got an email from Sweet Fiber, and they are doing a 4 skein holiday sock club. That makes sense. 4 skeins of sock yarn with matching or coordinating minis, and I just couldn't resist. So our internet was really spotty at the resort. I was, I think, sitting at breakfast when I got the email, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and order this. Well, I was trying to order it, and then I had a code sent to my phone for, I think it's Shop Pay or Square Shop or something, to confirm it, and I couldn't receive the text, and so I was like, this is crazy, I need this text. And so we went back to our room to get changed, or get our things together, I should say, because we were going on an excursion. And we left our room and we're going down the stairs, and all of a sudden I heard my text notification come in, and so I said, okay, wait a minute, Cameron, I just have to do this. So I stood on the stairs in like the magic spot and was able to complete my purchase. So yes, I am looking forward to receiving that, and I'm also receiving Fiber Nymph Dyeworks holiday set this year, so I will have plenty of lovely yarn to open in December. Finally, another thing that I really have my eye on, I just yesterday also watched Stephen West's Hyber knit-along video, where he debuts his Hyber knit-along shawl for this year. It is called the Aurora Cabin Shawl, and he was showing off 2 curated sets for this shawl from Stephen and Penelope. Now, I love both sets, but I am not going to order the yarn for it. I have plenty in my stash, and I'm sure that I can find 5 skeins to put together to make a very lovely version of this shawl. So even though I'm going to be just finishing up a gigantic Stephen West shawl, I am really tempted to cast on another. The knit along for it officially starts December 26th. I doubt that I will be participating in the KAL. Even with this mystery KAL, I haven't posted anything. I haven't really been following any of the knit along itself. I've just been enjoying getting the clues each week. So I will just decide, I'll cast it on whenever I feel like it. It may be right away, it may not be for months. It does go on sale tomorrow, as do the kits. So heads up if you are interested. I know you can go on Ravelry to the Aurora Cabin Shawl pattern page, and it will direct you to Stephen and Penelope, or you can just obviously Google Stephen Penelope or go to their website if you're interested in looking at the shawl and ordering a kit. Obviously not affiliated, just a fan. All right, so last week I promised you I would tell you a little bit about our trip to Mexico, but I thought I would leave that to the very end for those who aren't interested. So I will just briefly talk about what's been going on around here this past week and let you know my something good. And then if you're not interested in hearing about our trip and seeing pictures, you can carry on with your day. So you'll notice my voice is back, hooray. I've been feeling much better, although I still do have a bit of a residual cough, which is most prevalent in the morning and in the evening, but I think that's often the way with coughs. But generally feeling well. There seem to be sick people all over the place. A lot of family members that have been sick with colds or flus. And Cameron himself came down with a bug this week. He had a possible exposure to COVID last Friday, I think it was. And he came home sick on Tuesday. A couple of police cars just went by. You must have heard those. Oh, here comes another one. Something's going on. Oh, and another one. So something's, oh, and another one. That's 5 in a row. And here comes a 6th. Wow, I have no idea what's happening, but I'll carry on, why don't I? Sorry for the distraction. Yeah, anyway, Cameron ended up coming home. Oh, my goodness, there's another one. Or 2 maybe. Yeah, there's 2 more. Wow. I'll have to see if I can find out what's happening. Anyway, sorry, squirrel. Anyway, yeah, Cameron, I talked to him. I guess it was Tuesday morning. Yeah, today's Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday morning. And he said he hadn't slept very well and he wasn't feeling great. And I ended up going over to our daughter's on Tuesday afternoon. They were getting their fridge repaired and needed someone there. So when I came back from that, his car was in the driveway and he ended up coming home from work, which is very unlike him. And then he ended up staying home yesterday too. We both thought he had COVID because he had very similar symptoms to what he had at the beginning of his earlier case of COVID this summer. But he did test both days, and by yesterday afternoon, evening, he was feeling much, much better. Tested negative both days, both yesterday and this morning. There is another one. Is that a police car? Yeah. I'll see if I can find out what's happening and let you in on it. I mean, we live kind of on the bypass route, so we see you know, police cars or ambulances or fire trucks go by, you know, relatively regularly, but what was that, 8 or 9 cars? Something like that. Anyway, oh, and another one. That is crazy. That's 2 more now. Yeah, there's something big going down. Anyway, Cameron tested negative 2 days in a row, feeling better. He's back to work. Sorry for all that distraction. It's just hard not to look when it's right outside the window here. Our Halloween was basically a non-event here. We never get very many kids anyway, just because of where our street is situated and the fact that we don't have a sidewalk on our side of the road. So we had to curl. We left here about 6:30, and before that we saw a few kids on the other side of the street, but they didn't cross over. And then by the time we got home from curling, you know, trick-or-treating was done. So it's kind of sad. We always love seeing all the kids in their costumes. We did see a few while we were driving to curling, but didn't get to see them close up, you know, trick-or-treating. It's always a disappointment. Our grandson, he ended up staying home because he wasn't feeling well, but our youngest granddaughter went out. She was a sorceress this year, and her mom did a really cute face painting. It was fun also because 2 of my sisters sent pictures of their grandkids all dressed up, and a little video. Our great niece went trick-or-treating. Well, actually, 1 great niece and 1 great nephew went trick-or-treating, I think both maybe for the first time, and it's fun to see the kids. On the weekend, we did some yard work. We had done some tidy up before we went away on our trip, and we had left a lot of our flower baskets because they were still in decent shape, but the weather changed while we were away, and by the time we got home, they just looked terrible, even though they've been watered a few times by our kids. So got rid of those, put a bunch of patio furniture away, and just did some general cleanup. Update on the moles. Haven't had any new molehills in the front yard, but we have a couple of new ones in the back. Those appeared earlier this week, but I noticed this morning that our next door neighbor has about 10 in their yard. So I think for now, Mr. or Ms. Mole has gone next door, which is just fine with me. I am not naive enough to think they're not going to come back, but at least for now, we're seeing a bit of a break. I know you guys get a kick out of the Mole Wars stories. On Sunday, as I mentioned earlier, we went over to our daughter's place. We had a few things from for our grandkids from the trip. And then after that, we picked up our youngest son and his girlfriend and went and tried out a new brewery in town. It's his birthday on Halloween, so we knew we probably wouldn't get to see him on Halloween, so we got together on the Sunday instead. I'm not a beer drinker, but the rest of them are, so they enjoyed they all had a flight of beer, so they tried 4 different kinds each, and I had a glass of wine, which I learned is a local wine, white wine, and it was quite good, so it's one I will definitely look out for in the future. I think that's about it. Not tons going on around here. There will not be an episode next week. We are most likely heading over on Thursday to Vancouver Island to go see Cameron's mom, and we'll just check with his brother and his wife because we always stay with them. Just make sure it's okay, but most likely we will be spending a long weekend over in Victoria. And then I am also sparing for my sister's curling team Wednesday morning. So it's just way too short a week. No room for recording and especially editing in there. So I will see you again in 2 weeks' time, if all goes as planned. I always put that caveat because you just never know where life's going to take you. Before I say goodbye, for those of you who are not interested in seeing the Mexico trip update or recap, I guess, my something good for this episode is that it is sock season. Hooray! Get to wear hand knit socks every day. I had worn the odd pair over the summer, like if we were up at the cabin or something. And then since I started back to curling, I've been wearing them for curling, but now every single day I get to open my sock drawers and pick out a new pair of hand knit socks. And some of them I'm getting to wear for the first time because I've knit them over, the warmer months, though they haven't seen any action. So I always love this time of year. The only thing I don't like about it is that it makes, it's a bit of a nuisance on laundry day, because I do soak all of our socks in a bit of wool wash in a bucket, and then I empty the bucket into our front loading washing machine and just give them a spin on the lowest setting. That gets most of the water out, and then hang them up on a drying rack. So yeah, that part's not so much fun, just a little extra work, but I do love wearing my hand knit socks. All right, so for those of you who are leaving me, goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And for those of you who are interested in what we got up to in Mexico, I'll begin a little recap right now. I'll do my best just to hit the highlights because I know how these things can run on. Just as a reminder, this trip was with Cameron's work. His company does an incentive program for their customers, and every 2 years they either go on a cruise or to an all-inclusive resort. And they take some staff along as hosts. So we've been lucky enough to be on every trip since 1999. This trip was supposed to have taken place last fall, but then it was delayed because of COVID, first until January of this year, and then it finally took place a couple of weeks ago. I think everybody was ready for a holiday in the sun. So on Saturday, October 15th, we flew out to Cancun, Mexico, and stayed at a resort just south of there for 8 days. Unfortunately, our trip got off to rather a rocky start. They had arranged 2 charter flights and a commercial flight to fly everyone out that morning. But unfortunately, one of the charter planes the night before was backed into by another plane, and so it was therefore not able to be flown. So they scrambled to make some new arrangements. So neither charter flight was going to be full, so they put as many customers as possible on the remaining charter flight, and then put most of the staff and as few customers as possible on a new charter flight. But that didn't take off until later. There were only about 70 of us on this big plane that could hold, I think, about 200 people. So it was rather nice, actually. We could pick, wherever we wanted to sit, and there was lots of room. So Cameron and I each got to sit in our favorite seats. I got the window, he got the aisle, and then we had the seat between us that we could put our things on and stretch out and all that. So unfortunately, the original flight was supposed to have been a direct flight to Cancun, but the new one had to go via Houston, and they had hoped to be able to have customs and security come on the plane, so we wouldn't have to get off, but it didn't work out that way. So we had to deplane, go through customs, claim our baggage, recheck our baggage, and then go to security, and then get back on the same plane. But the flights themselves were very good, and we did eventually arrive in Cancun, but it was not until about 1:30 a.m. that we got to the resort. I think we had originally supposed to have gotten there maybe like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So needless to say, we were tired, but we dropped our things in our room. We didn't have the luggage yet, so we decided to go out, see if we could find something to drink and something to eat. So we managed to get a drink before the bar closed, but somehow never made it over to the food because we kept stopping to talk to people, which is often the case. And by the time we got to bed, it was about 4 a.m., which would have been about 2 a.m. our time. Neither of us had very good sleep. Our room, when we walked into it, was absolutely freezing. They turned the air conditioning way down, and it was very humid there, apparently more humid than usual. So everything just felt damp, and it had this strange, damp, tropical smell. We noticed it as soon as we got into the airport in Mexico, and over the course of the week we stopped noticing it, but I did notice it again when I opened up the suitcases to wash all of our clothes. They all had that smell still. I guess it's a fairly common thing, but I don't remember that from being in Mexico before. In any case, we didn't sleep well in these cold, clammy sheets, but we did sleep in and explored a little bit around the resort the next day, and then we had a staff function that afternoon. It was supposed to have taken place the night before, but of course most of the staff wasn't there. So the next day we went on our first of 4 excursions. I think maybe rather than do things chronologically, I'll just break it down into themes. So we did 4 excursions while we were there. The first was to swim with the dolphins. This is something Cameron wanted to do. I was a little bit nervous about it. I just pictured being in this huge lagoon or something with a bunch of dolphins around me with no real control. But as it turned out, it was not that at all. We were outside in this really large saltwater, like it wasn't like, I would call it maybe a pen right in the ocean. Very controlled circumstances. So we got to touch the dolphin, and they took a gazillion photos. So you got to put your hand like this in front of you, and the dolphin put its chin in your hand, and you turned your head and it kissed you, and then you had your hand out like this and it came this way across you and you could pet it. We had snorkel gear on so we could see them underwater. One point there were 5 of us in a group, and it was two of them were managers of stores that Cameron oversees, and then also one of the manager's girlfriends. So we all knew each other, so it was really nice. So at one point we all linked arms and the dolphin jumped over our head. And then the sort of finale is called a foot push. So you lay on your front with your arms stretched out and your feet stretched out and apart, and you put your feet sort of pointing down, and 2 dolphins come, one on each foot, and they push the ball of your foot, which lifts you along the pool and up out of the water for probably about 100 feet or so. That was another thing I wasn't sure I wanted to do, but I waited to go last, and they're all, come on, you got to do it. So I did, and I'm really glad I did. I'm just a big chicken. Cameron absolutely loved it. He just, as he was being pushed, he was just like, woohoo, and this huge grin on his face. And if you know him, he's not one to show tons and tons of emotions, so I knew he really loved it when I saw that. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures to show you right now. The pictures were included with our excursion, but we have not yet received the link to go and look at them and download them. We did get to view them while we were still there, and there are some awesome pictures. So I'm really hoping that that does come through, because I would hate to not be able to have some of those pictures. The second excursion we did was to go to a place called Shell Ha, which is, I guess I would describe it as sort of an ecological park, ecological adventure park. They have this river that you can either float down in tubes or else snorkel down. So we got snorkel gear and we started out on the tubes, but the river did not have much of a current, and so we were pulling ourselves along the mangroves in the first part and bump into people as you go. It's just part of it. And then you come out into this open area, and that's when we ditched the tube and then we swam the rest of the way. Because it was so hot and humid, our snorkel masks kept fogging up, so we didn't have as successful a snorkeling experience as we've had other places. But it was a freshwater lagoon. It's where the fresh water meets the sea, and it was really beautiful. So your entrance gave you access to there were several restaurants and bars, and so we did the water stuff in the when we first got there, and then we went and had a drink and went and had some lunch, and then afterwards we walked around the area. There's a big tall water slide that we did not go on, but we just by that time we were all changed back into our regular clothes and didn't feel like getting wet again. But we enjoyed our walk around, and just could see just the scenery, some various caves, and yeah, just a beautiful nature walk, really. By the time we left, it had started to rain, and then on the way home, or way back to the resort, it really came down, but we missed the worst of it. I guess it had poured all afternoon back at the resort, so we had really lucked out because we had decent weather for our day. Same thing happened a couple days later. We went to Tulum, which are some Mayan ruins by the sea, by the coast, and so we walked around there for a while, and then our excursion was called Tulum and Chill. So after we saw the ruins, Tulum is also a modern city, so we drove through the modern city of Tulum, and then went off the beaten track a bit and ended up at a freshwater lagoon where there was like a hut set up and had a bar and a meal, had an open bar, and then like a lunch for us, and we literally just chilled in the water or on chairs, and just enjoyed the scenery and some downtime. And we had very few sprinkles while we were there, and again, it turned out back at the resort they'd had more rain, so we chose the right days to go off-site. And then our final excursion was called Rio Secreto, and we walked and swam through some underground caves, rivers, like underground caves. You walk along, and in some parts you're in these ponds or rivers and swimming through them. So you're in like a little short sleeve wetsuit, short sleeve, and goes down kind of to your knees, and then we had helmets on with lights. That was really neat. We love caves. We've done various cave excursions over the years, and that was the one we were looking forward to the most. At one point, I think there were 7 of us in our group, and at one point we were all linked arms in a circle, floating on our back, and then everyone turned out the lights, and then just lay there in the dark, floating in this water and listening to all the sounds. And then our guide turned the light on. It was right over our head, and you can just see all the formations on the cave ceiling. It was very good. And then afterwards there was also a lunch. So yeah, all the excursions were definitely fun. Cameron's company generously gave us an allowance towards excursions, and I think what he was given covered all of ours except for I think $6. So very, very generous of them. And we are not lay in the sun and bake people at all. And so it was nice to go off site and do some other things. A couple of the days we found a little shady spot on the beach under a little grass umbrella thing. So we did have some downtime there, but in the shade wherever we could find it. There were several group events that were planned. A couple of them took place off-site, and then one took place at the resort the last night. So the first one was the Mayan Mystic Party, and so there was some cool performances going on stage while we were eating dinner. Really nice buffet Mexican food dinner. And then they had arranged for all their there were several Canadian bands that they'd arranged for entertainment. So that night Arkells played for us. I hadn't heard of them before, but they actually played in the arena in Vancouver a few days later. So they are obviously, you know, well known enough to sell out a big stadium. But they played a few of their own songs, and then they did a lot of classic rock hits. So playing to the crowd for sure, because probably most people are at least around our age. Well, I shouldn't say that, because as we're getting older, there are new, younger people coming in, both staff and customers. So in any case, that was very enjoyable. And then our biggest party was the Dia, okay, I wrote it down, Dia de Muertos party. And that was more formal. We had sat at tables, had a beautiful plated dinner, and they encouraged people to dress up. So we had ordered this costume for Cameron to wear. It was just a jacket. From the jacket up, he wore a white shirt of his own and his own black pants, but that was his costume. I had a dress that I had bought that realized that would be suitable, and I bought a red flowered sash from a secondhand store, and I bought a mask. I should go grab that. I bought this mask when we bought Cameron's costume. So I had that. Whoops. So I wore that at least before dinner. And then there were a few things on our tables that you could wear as costumes. So there was like a little mantilla, a flowered headband, which I ended up giving to our younger granddaughter. There was some beaded necklaces, like kind of collars for women. Anyway, so it was really fun. And then so we had a nice dinner, and then our entertainment were another couple of Canadian bands, Glass Tiger, which are kind of I'd say an 80s band, and then 5440, which is a Vancouver-based band. And they actually stayed at the resort for most of the week. So we ended up chatting to their drummer the last night. So that was kind of cool. They kind of mingled at times with the rest of the crowd. So that was a really fun night. And then the final night, they had a dessert reception, just a farewell dessert party, and we were all supposed to wear white. So did not know what I was going to wear. I ended up finding a dress online for under $20. It came from China. It was supposed to arrive, I think, the day before we left. Thankfully, it got there the week before that. It fit perfectly, and I was set. So yeah, some really, really good events. And then they'd also had a band there from Nashville, and they played every night at the nightclub. And that was really fun. So several nights we went upstairs and danced, and that was really good. A lot of fun, nice way to end the night. I'm just gonna cough and I'll be right back with the rest. Every night that we didn't have an event, we hosted customers for dinner at one of the various restaurants. Sometimes we knew them and sometimes we didn't. The dinners were all arranged for us. So there was one dinner in particular that was really memorable. We were hosting two couples from the same business. And one was a couple in their 40s and one was a couple closer to our age. Partway through dinner, Cameron mentioned the company that he used to work for, and the husband of the younger couple said that he had worked there for a short time also. And then he said, and my wife's father worked there for a long time. And so Cameron asked who her father was, and it turned out to be a man that he had worked with for the whole time that he had been there, which was 10 years. And in fact, he used to walk over to this man's house and catch a ride with him to work every day because he didn't have a car. And when he would be there while this man was getting ready to go, he would visit with his little daughter, who was about 5 years old at the time. Well, lo and behold, this was the daughter. And she totally remembered Cameron from that time. This man had hosted Cameron's bachelor party at his house. And they had also, the couple had given us some baby things when we were pregnant with our first child. And so this just totally changed the dinner. It was so cool to find out how our parents were, because we hadn't seen them in decades, to learn, what she'd been up to, and just to kind of reminisce about the old company and some of the people that worked there and things like that. And then we ran into them later on at the last night's party too, and chatted some more. So we took a picture with her for her to send her parents, and unfortunately they were en route to a holiday, so we didn't get a reaction from them before we left. But we did get some contact info, and they don't live locally anymore, and so hopefully one day we'll have an opportunity to get together again with them. So it was just, such a small world. That afternoon, actually, we had also talked to another couple from the interior of BC, and it turned out that the man mentioned family, and the matriarch is like my mom's best friend where she lives. So that was another small world thing. You can always find something to talk about, that's for sure. Anyway, all in all, it was a very good trip. I wouldn't say it was super relaxing, but it was very enjoyable. And then unfortunately, it didn't end so great either. Because of the way the flights were, we ended up having to take the same route home, only in reverse. So we had the same people that were on the delayed charter flight ended up taking the same flight back. So again, it was nice to spread out on the plane and all that, but it meant that we again had to go via Houston and get off the plane and get back on it. And the flight from Cancun to Houston was freezing cold. So we were lucky to snag some blankets as we walked through the airport in Houston, and they came in handy on the way home because the plane didn't have any blankets. So we walked by a store that was selling them, and it was like, snag. And And then when we got back to Vancouver, we were waiting and waiting and waiting for our luggage, and it wasn't being unloaded. And I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think it had something to do with it being a charter flight, and it took a couple of hours before our luggage was offloaded and we could collect it. So that was not a great way to end the day. Instead of getting home kind of late afternoon, early evening, it was about 10 o'clock by the time we got home. We stopped, had something to eat on the way home because we were starving. And then Cameron had to get up and go to work the next day. But as it turned out, we weren't the latest because another flight didn't get in till about an hour after that. So all in all, we fared okay. So yes, a very good trip. The next trip is in January of 2024, I believe, and it is a cruise in South America. So we'll see. We'll see what happens between now and then, and we'll see if we are invited to go again. It would be fantastic. But we never count our chickens before they're hatched. We've been very lucky up till now, but there's no guarantee that we'd be on the next one. Anyway, that is it for real. I hope you enjoyed some of the photos that I inserted and enjoyed learning a little bit more about our trip to Mexico. So have yourselves a wonderful couple of weeks, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye now.